Good morning. Everybody will please take a seat. Staff are handing out copies of the tracking sheets, so you'll have those. I'm going to ask Paul Battles if he will give our invocation this morning, please. Amen. Thank you, sir. I'm going to turn the control of the meeting over to our vice chairman, and we'll present the bill.
Like this gavel. Okay, Mr. Chairman, your mic should be on.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see a good crowd here. We're not quite at 86, but we're close. We're close. Those of you that are here this morning get a gold star. We're going to walk through very quickly the amended budget this morning. House Bill 43 is the amended 17 budget. Not an awful lot of changes from what the governor's recommendations were. There are a few, and I want to walk through those with you this morning. I'm not going to note the statewide changes because they are self-explanatory, and you will see the first of those statewide changes in Section 3 on the joint offices of the General Assembly, just because the executive branch does not have the ability to make those changes. Again, in the audits and accounts, the same thing, Section 4. Moving on to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals is of course, a separate branch of government from the executive branch too, so they're not able to make changes in the court system requests. So that falls to us, and Chairman Welch and his subcommittee worked awfully hard on looking at things there and the asks. And the first change there, Section 5, Court of Appeals 5.1.3, you'll see a reduction of $5,277. The position that was hired was delayed in hiring, so we've captured the savings there. Moving on to Judicial Council, under the JQC at 6.5.1, again, a statewide adjustment. 5.2, just a position had been held vacant, $20,000 reduction there. Section 7, Juvenile Courts, statewide change. Section 8, Prosecuting Attorneys, looking at 8.2.3 and 8.2.4. The starting dates of those positions were staggered in hiring, so there were some savings there that were able to be captured, so we've done that as well. Superior Courts, if you look at 9.3.4, again, delayed hiring of a couple of clerks, and just captured the savings there as well. Supreme Court, again, if you start at 10.1.1, a statewide adjustment there, but then the next next three positions were positions being asked for. We don't typically add positions in the amended budget. We do look at those in fiscal year 18, so those savings have been captured there. Delayed hiring on 10.1.6, and then a reduction for actual mileage expenses on 10.1.7. So moving on to the next changes that you'll see. Section 13, Department of Ag. Small reduction of $35,000 as we started up the gate card compliance inspectors. And those of you that were at the Rural Caucus meeting yesterday got a good update on that program. And those positions are working very well. They were mid-August being hired, so we've captured a little bit of savings there. It is annualized it will be annualized in the 18 budget as far as the full amount, because they are all on the ground working now. So that's just a one-time capture of savings. Section 16, Department of Community Affairs. 16.11.2, there's a couple of another transaction that will match that reduction there of $5 million. The governor recommended $15 million put into the REBA program in the expansion of the cybersecurity range and everything that's being done in Augusta. We're looking to actually go out and court a lot of supporting industry that's related to the cybersecurity field. However, with the recent bait of storms in southwest Georgia, south central Georgia, and stretching over into a little bit of southeast Georgia, it was felt, many of the delegation members from down that way been on the phone with me this weekend, and we've been in conversations with the governor as well about potentially moving some more funds over into the governor's emergency fund. So you'll see this $5 million here show up over there in just a few minutes, just for anything that's unknown or unseen right this minute. 1611.3, small film production grants. We've not been able to initiate that program yet. Still working to, but doubt we have it in place by the end of the year. So we've captured those funds as well. Moving on to Section 17, Department of Community Health. Got several transactions here that are kind of tied together. As you look at Department Administration in 17.12 and 17.13, you'll see the transfer in of some funds that came from a couple of different places. The 1.108 million on 17.12 actually comes from 17.75. It was an ask of the agency to make that move, so we've done that. The 150,000 is a move from 17.82 to 17.13. Looking on down the list, 17.42 under healthcare assessment, access and improvement. There've only been 6 grants awarded of the 300,000 that was initially put in, so we've captured that savings there. Then looking down to 17.52, that is another move from 17.76 that's been requested by the agency to allow them to program those funds where they need to be programmed into. So that covers most of those changes. On down to 17.11, savings of $35,000 for the delay in hiring of a position there. We've just captured that savings. And then agreed to some language at 17.12.11 dealing with our family medicine accelerated curriculum training program at Memorial Medical Center down in Savannah. Been very successful, and we want to continue to make sure that happens. Moving on to Section 23, Economic Development. One small reduction there, 23.9.2. The contract for the Historic Chattahoochee Commission, that contract is no longer needed, so a reduction of $12,500 there. Section 24 under Education. See a few changes, minor changes back and forth here. 24.12 in a waterline project at Camp John Hope that we've bonded in the past. They ran into some unforeseen circumstances there, so instead of using bonds to finish up that project so they can go ahead and move ahead with it, we decided to use cash there of $200,000 to finish that project. There's a little bit of a shortfall in the admin program under Ag Ed, so we've done a shift from Business and Finance Administration within DOE up to Ag Ed to cover that shortfall there. 24.8, you'll see a reduction. Elimination of a contract that DOE has with an entity. Moving on to 24.17. Our usual adjustments as we always wind up having to do at 24.17.1 under QBE. You'll notice that the funds at 24.17.5 are zeroed out. However, they are rolled up into that number. So the money is still there to take care of those two entities that are noted there, but we felt like that it was better fitted being up into the QBE funds. Again, just small adjustments when you look at adjustments for actual enrollment under 24-17-2 and 3 and 17-4 as well. Under 24.22.2, of course, every year DOE has a bond request for capital equipment for our CTAE programs, our Career Tech and Ag Ed programs across the state. As you know, we always have in the House $50 million worth of bonds to be able to do different projects and priorities of the House with. And looking and realizing we could move some cash around to do some stuff within the budget, went ahead and picked off about half of the budget request or the bond request for the capital equipment for program expansion and industry certification around the state as well. So that's what that item is. Moving on now to Office of the Governor. Under 27.11, you will see the addition of the $5 million that I was talking about in REBA just a few minutes ago going into the emergency fund there. Section 28, Chair Lady Dempsey and her committee obviously have a heart for Georgians, and as we all do. And the Chair Lady and her committee have worked awfully hard in looking at improving the lives of not only our elderly, but our young people as well. And so on 28.15.2 and 28.15.3, you'll see some things that we're moving ahead with. On 28.15.2, the governor recommended already going ahead and doing this in the 18 budget, but as we continue to work through and realized what the importance of it is with 13,000 children being placed in foster homes, realized that we might need to start that bump a little bit earlier because we're seeing foster families drop out of the mix, and so it's making it that much more difficult to find placement for these kids. So this will actually start what the governor has asked for in the 18 budget on April 1st of this year, so backing it up about 3 months, a quarter earlier. And then 28.15.3 is increasing, doing a $1 a day increase for relative foster care, and there are about 4,200 kids in that program as well, and starting it April 1st as well. Moving now to Section 31, Department of Juvenile Justice. Small reduction in admin there at 31.25 of 50,000. Section 34, Department of Natural Resources, an adjustment at 34.72. Some later additional information came along on some other projects that DNR, some other trail projects DNR was needing some help to complete, so we made some small additions there as well. Under Section 37, Public Defender Council, Chairman Welch and his committee, well, all the subcommittees work extremely hard, and I don't mean to make it sound like that they don't. Chairman Welch sometimes, though, I think has a diamond tip drill bit, so he drills pretty hard sometimes. But in looking at public defenders and realizing the role they play in making sure that everyone receives the justice they deserve, whether they're being found guilty or innocent, but they all deserve having justice. That's what our country's founded on. 37.14, realizing there'd been a shortfall in some training expenses for public defenders, so an add of $200,000 there for the public defender training. 38.52 under public health, Chairman Parrish and his subcommittee, in looking there at the public health laboratory maintenance, realized that there's a list of projects and priorities, and that the original amount of $385,000 kind of got part of the next priority done, but it wasn't enough to actually do it. So we pulled $80,000 out there. It does give them the opportunity to get a couple of their priorities checked off the list, and then we will, of course, look at going further in the 18 budget as well. Moving on to Section 39, Department of Public Safety. Under motor carrier compliance at 3954, just balancing up cash with bonds, bond amounts, and so a reduction there moving forward. And then we'll, of course, address that again in the 18 budget. Looking on to Section 41, Regent System. 41-21-2, payments towards Military College. Just truing up the actual numbers for some projects down there on their campus. Some renovations to the old Capitol building, the new Military Science building, and the Milledgeville, the whole Milledgeville campus there as well. Some needs on some older structures. If you think about the old Capitol building there, this building is 130 some odd years old, and that was the Capitol building before this one. So that building has some inherent high costs in maintaining it. 41.22.2 under GPTC, some later information on a contract there, so a reduction of $1 million on developing those assessment tools. On Section 42, Department of Revenue, you'll see a transfer at 4263 and 4282. The department came to us asking for that transfer within their programs, and so we were glad to try to help them out there. So that's all that is. No additional money, no add. And then Secretary of State, Section 43, a reduction in 43.1.1 under corporations, and looking at their budget, they're running over on state funds because they do have the opportunity to use fees associated with corporate registrations and everything. So we've just captured some state funds out of that to help with the budget. Other than that, that is the last change other than the statewide changes. You will notice on Section 50 a reduction in debt service dollars there, $73,677. Those are where OPB and the governor's office are kind enough to park the cash to do the statewide changes within the offices of the General Assembly, and so that is what that relates to. Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions if there are any. If not, we'll take a motion as well.
I think we have one question. Representative Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I was trying to listen, and I might have missed something. Can we go to 16.11.2, the REBA grants?
Yes, sir.
Could you explain that to me one more time, what we're doing there? I heard the part about the governor's emergency fund, but I think this is dealing with the cyber range in Augusta. Is that right?
It is. They originally OPB and the governor requested $15 million there. REBA is funded fairly well as it is. We were just trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit. Something we can come back in 18 amended if we need to court those companies. But the immediate need today is to make sure that folks in South Georgia are taken care of where the tornadoes hit this past weekend. So just felt like we needed to make that move.
So two questions. The first one on that, I know the governor gave us somewhat of a timetable for the construction of that cyber range, and it matched up with some federal stuff that was going on.
This doesn't affect that.
We're still going to be able to continue with that.
Yeah, that $50 million is in another line.
Yes, sir.
And that's untouched.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we have any more questions. Is there a motion? I have a motion, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. You're on the rules, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you on the Ag Committee, Chairman McCall does request that you run up to room 403. They're meeting right now and hearing about a new industry growing in our state, the citrus industry. And other than that, Mr. Chairman, you can adjourn us.